Floods are one of nature's most powerful and devastating forces. They reshape landscapes, destroy cities, and remind us of the raw power of water. But what causes these disasters, and how can we stay safe? In this video, we'll show you some of the most shocking flood moments ever captured, while also exploring the science behind them. If you find this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more eye-opening content. Now, let's dive in. Floods strike with little warning, turning streets into rivers and homes into disaster zones. Heavy rains, hurricanes, and even melting glaciers can unleash unstoppable waves of destruction. In cities, overwhelmed drainage systems make flooding worse. In rural areas, deforestation and climate change are increasing the risk. No place is truly safe from nature's power. As you watch these incredible moments, remember, knowledge saves lives. Stay prepared, follow evacuation alerts, and never underestimate the force of water. A sudden flood sweeps through the village, carrying fish along with the rushing water. Instead of panicking, the villagers rush out, laughing and shouting as they scoop up fish with their hands, baskets, and even shirts. Chaos turns into excitement as they turn disaster into an unexpected feast. The floodwaters surged into the sheep pen, submerging the fences and forcing the animals to scramble for higher ground, helpless against the rising tide. The floodwaters quickly engulfed the house, and within moments, the structure collapsed, swept away by the raging current. The floodwaters quickly swept the passenger bus away, dragging it downstream and disappearing into the raging current. The floodwaters surged with incredible force, sweeping away the bridge that once connected the village to the outside world. As the structure collapsed into the churning river, it dragged rocks, mud, and uprooted trees along with it. The debris rushed toward the village, flooding homes and streets, leaving behind a path of destruction. What had been a peaceful community was now submerged. The rising floodwaters overflowed the river, washing away half of the road and making it impassable. The floodwaters surged with such force that they finally overwhelmed the massive bridge. With a loud crack, the structure gave way, collapsing into the rushing current. Heavy rain loosened the rocks, sending boulders crashing down the mountain, shaking the ground and scattering debris. The floodwaters caused the river to rise rapidly, sweeping cars along with the current. Vehicles were pulled off the road, tossed and carried away as the water surged, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake.
Yep.
Heavy rains pounded the region for days, causing the river to swell beyond its banks. As the rushing water carved through the landscape, the force of the flood proved too much for the old bridge. Cracks spread along the pavement, and before long a massive section of the road gave way, collapsing into the raging current below. What was once a vital route connecting the town to the outside world was now nothing but broken asphalt and twisted guardrails. Emergency crews rushed to the scene, but with the road completely washed out, residents were left stranded, facing an uncertain wait for repairs.
Last landers are up the culvert. Back in. Spectacular.
While out enjoying their day, the locals were caught off guard as the floodwaters suddenly surged. Panic set in as they sprinted to escape, the water chasing them relentlessly. They could hear the rush of the flood just behind, knowing they had little time to reach safety before it overwhelmed them. As the floodwaters surged higher, trees were quickly submerged, their trunks disappearing beneath the murky water. The soil along the riverbanks turned to sludge, washing away chunks of land with each passing moment. The current swept through the area, dragging roots, rocks, and debris, swallowing everything in its path and leaving behind a once familiar landscape now hidden under the relentless tide. As the floodwaters surged higher, trees were quickly submerged, their trunks disappearing beneath the murky water. The soil along the riverbanks turned to sludge, washing away chunks of land with each passing moment. The current swept through the area, dragging roots, rocks, and debris, swallowing everything in its path and leaving behind a once familiar landscape now hidden under the relentless tide. The heavy rain soaked the mountainside, weakening the soil. As the downpour continued, the saturated earth gave way, sending mud and rocks rushing downhill. Trees were uprooted and debris tumbled down, covering roads and homes below. The once stable slope had turned into a dangerous, shifting mass, threatening more destruction with every passing storm. The floodwaters quickly rose, flooding the homes. People stood helpless, watching as their houses were consumed by the rising tide, powerless to stop the destruction.
Hey, what's the 107 bridge?
The floodwaters slammed into the walls, causing them to collapse. People screamed in panic, powerless against the rushing water that destroyed their homes. While camping, the sky darkened, and floodwaters quickly rushed toward the site. In panic, everyone grabbed their gear and scrambled for higher ground, fleeing the rising tide. The floodwaters swallowed the town, turning streets into rivers. Cars floated aimlessly, carried by the current, their roofs barely visible above the murky water. The rising floodwaters collapsed the house, sweeping it away in seconds until nothing remained. Days of heavy rain weakened the mountain, triggering a massive landslide. Rocks, mud, and trees crashed down, destroying the village below. Houses were buried, roads vanished, and survivors faced a scene of devastation.
遇到凡事不要慌，先把手指掏出来拍个朋友。
The ice suddenly cracked with a thunderous explosion, sending shards flying. In moments, fierce winds howled as the shattered ice turned into a raging snowstorm, swallowing everything in its path. The flood came so suddenly that one person was swept away by the raging water. Struggling against the current, they fought to stay afloat. Just as hope seemed lost, they grabbed onto a sturdy branch and pulled themselves to safety, narrowly escaping the flood's grip. After days of relentless rain, the saturated hillside could no longer hold. Without warning, the earth gave way, sending a massive landslide crashing down. Tons of mud, rocks, and uprooted trees tumbled onto the road, burying it under a thick, heavy layer of debris. What was once a clear and busy path was now an impassable stretch of destruction, cutting off access and leaving the area isolated.
Nosotros, Yanni, nosotros.
A sudden hailstorm struck, with ice pellets pounding rooftops, cars, and trees. The deafening impact shattered windows, dented vehicles, and tore through branches. Leaves and debris scattered as the storm raged on, leaving behind a trail of destruction in just minutes.
Les explico. Helada, granizada super heavy aquí en Baigorguina.
The clogged drains couldn't handle the rising floodwaters, causing water and thick mud to pour into the underground parking garage. Within minutes, the entire space was submerged, trapping over 100 cars beneath the murky flood. Only rooftops and side mirrors peeked above the water, leaving behind a scene of devastation.
Hay que mirar cómo baja aquí el agua. ¿Vale? Ojo, a de molino. Yo no sé cómo no pasa nada más.
Tá cedendo tudo.
As the floodwaters rose rapidly, residents fled to the upper floors of their homes to escape. The water quickly overtook the streets, leaving people stranded on rooftops and higher levels, helpless against the rising tide.
Sí, pues, va en la L.
Todo, papá. Mira, estamos flotando ya, papá.
While driving home, the floodwaters suddenly began to rise, quickly covering the road. Despite trying to keep moving, the water surged higher, eventually engulfing the car. The engine stalled, and the vehicle was trapped, slowly being submerged by the relentless flood.
Amor, amor, aquí nos estamos hundiendo, amor, nos estamos hundiendo, mire, ve, nos estamos hundiendo, la amo, oiga, cuídeme la niña ahí, ve, por favor, cuida a mi mamá, yo la amo mucho, ve, puedo verla, la amo mucho, mi amor, cuídense, oiga, mucho, mucho la amo, mi amor.
As the storm approached, the sky darkened and the winds howled like a giant, monstrous creature. It seemed as if the storm itself wanted to devour the entire city, with lightning flashing and thunder crashing in its wake. From above, the city appeared as a flooded wasteland. Streets were submerged, and buildings vanished beneath the water, leaving only rooftops in sight. It looked like a desolate, abandoned place.
Aquí ahí es donde se han acumulado los coches, que habrá un túnel, se iban metiendo.
The gym was reduced to rubble, with collapsed walls and mud covering everything. Destroyed equipment lay scattered, leaving only debris behind. As the floodwaters rose too high, there was no other way to reach the stranded. In desperation, the residents resorted to using rescue helicopters with sliding ladders, reaching down to pull people to safety from the rising water below. It was their last hope to save lives as the flood overwhelmed the town. The storm was so fierce that it caused the drainage pipes to burst, exploding with a loud crash. Water and debris flooded the streets, overwhelming the already damaged system. The storm shook the swimming pool violently, with the water splashing as the walls trembled, threatening to collapse. Floods show us the power of nature, but also the strength of communities that rise from the destruction. By understanding the causes and taking precautions, we can protect ourselves better. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, stay informed, and let's make a difference together.